Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 4 of Silicon Valley's podcast. Big thank you to everyone that's followed us so far and supported us. For those new to the podcast, Silicon Valley's is a podcast about the Welsh technology ecosystem, the people building it, the businesses growing inside it, and the decisions that are shaping its future. Today, we plan to discuss something potentially really exciting happening here in Wales, and we have a huge guest to discuss it. Wales is about to become one of the UK's main testbeds for AI-driven growth, with Vantage Data Centers announcing a £10 billion investment to transform the former Ford plant in Bridgend, bringing up to what has been described as 5,000 jobs and the backing of Microsoft. This could be arguably the most significant economic moment for Wales tech in a generation. There's 2 AI growth zones planned, one in South Wales and one in North Wales. What we want to explore is what an AI growth zone is and the framework for making it work and what that looks like. What needs to happen to make sure this moment right now is not squandered. Today's guest is synonymous for technology success here in Wales, having started and exited a technology business and now building a new exciting business looking to scale. So, a very, very warm welcome to James Smith.
Thanks, Dave.
No problem. I think what we've done with previous guests is you'll do it better than me as well. So if you give the guests a good overview of your background and what you've done here in Wales to date.
Great. Well, thanks for having me on today. I'm James Smith. I'm currently the founder and CEO of a business called Critical Cloud, building here in Cardiff. Spent the best part of, actually more than a decade, scaling companies in Cardiff, how time flies. First business that I launched was back in 2013 called DevOps Group. Scaled that business to around 150 people here in Wales. Built solely on the premise of, could we launch a modern technology business in Cardiff? Was the ecosystem here to do that? And I think we did a pretty good job. It wasn't easy. There's a lot of support from the community. But the whole idea was come into Wales, find the talent locally, develop a business here, reach out to the community to get funding, prove you could get venture cap behind you, scale the business and then exit. And we would be the test bed in the local community for doing that. And so that was one we got away in 2021. We exited that company successfully, and we sort of laid that marker down on the hope that more businesses would come behind DevOps Group and scale. So prove it could be done here.
Brilliant.
So that was a long journey. Took a couple of years out, and then in 25 we launched Critical Cloud to kind of really come back to market with the idea of, well, if you've exited, you come back and build again, right? For me, there's not enough case studies of that happening. There's some brilliant entrepreneurs in the local community who did all sorts of great things. Some have gone on to invest and taken the angel route, and some are coming back to build again, and I want to be one of those builders. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Fantastic.
And so the goal this time is to take advantage of this next generation of technology and capability that's coming. So we provide what we're coining as managed runtime assurance. That's giving companies the certainty that they can build AI on any platform they choose. And there's an organization that's going to sit behind them, giving them the confidence, the security, the performance, the reliability, the cost optimization to scale that platform while they focus on building their product. And so that's what we're set up to do. Build in Wales, scale globally.
Fantastic. So obviously we're talking about the AI growth zones today. I was reading, I think we did some research. We were looking at the sort of the framework that you believe should be set up to get the best for Wales.
Yeah.
But I think what I want to start is, because I think for those who don't know, can you explain what an AI growth zone actually is? Not necessarily in the press release sense, but what it actually means for a place like South Wales.
So an AI growth zone is an idea that was started by UK government, and they've launched a number of those kind of nationally. Wales was one of the countries and one of the regions, I guess, in the United Kingdom that had an opportunity to try and secure one of those growth zones, and actually did an amazing job. We've secured 2 of those growth zones, one in the north of Wales and one in the south. fundamentally, I think the concept is that it's going to be a geographic region, location, built around a data center. So the data center will be the anchor, and from that then will come job creation, further investment, not only in the data center itself, but the things a data center needs: power, connectivity, those sorts of things. So in the north, it's anchored around the small nuclear reactor, the SMR, that's being built on Anglesey. So I think it's 100 billion investment, including that, which is a huge amount of money. And then the idea is that they connect a data center to that SMR. And in the south, it's built around the old Ford plant in Bridgend, with Vantage building a data center located there. Potentially one at Aberthaw as well. But upgrading the infrastructure around getting power and connectivity into those data centers, and then hopefully from there kind of building on top of that opportunity.
And this is mostly private investment, right? Like attracting private investment into the region to fund these schemes, to fund the nuclear reactor and the data centers.
That's correct. I think there is a notional £5 million worth of, I don't know if funding's the right term, but public investment into that to try and help embed potential skills and SME engagement afterwards as well.
Sure. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Well, potentially for Wales. So wearing my other hat in recruitment, I've seen a lot of the tech ecosystem, and a lot of us have all seen it, watch them leave Wales potentially to Bristol, London, Manchester, because the big names weren't here. When something of this scale lands, what do you think it actually means? And to you, Liam, as well, I suppose, with your background, what does it mean for people who've been around long enough to know how rare a moment is?
On James, you go.
I think it's a huge opportunity for Wales. It's a real momentous investment, 10 billion euros of investment into a country our size. Potentially, if you say with 100 billion on top of the North Wales region as well, is significant. It's potentially a generational shift in capability.
Wow.
Which is why we need to do more to make sure that actually that long-term benefit is kind of really felt, not just in the data centers themselves, but into the SME community.
Yeah.
There's over 650,000 people employed in SMEs in Wales, and SMEs represent over 99% of business, actually. So that 1% is large enterprise.
Yeah.
So our economy runs on SMEs. And so that's why I wanted to put the Area Growth Zone initiative together to talk about what happens after these data centers are built, so that we make sure we leverage that generational impact.
Absolutely. And just try and keep more people closer to home. Hopefully, like you say, job creation, wealth generation, then hopefully we can give our potential audience opportunities to want to be here in Wales.
Sure. And to your point about the SMEs as well, I think one of the main concerns here, right, is that, sure, when you create a data center, you create a lot of jobs whilst it's being created and whilst it's being sort of put together. But when a data center actually runs, it doesn't take that many people to run a data center, right? I went on a visit to one in Bristol about a month ago, and there were about 5 or 6 people working there. A huge site, but it runs itself, basically. You need people there to make sure it's not catching fire and everything. But so to your point, right, I mean, if this has to have a wider impact on the community, how do you make sure that the community itself is benefiting from this data center and it's not just this building over there that's making somebody else money?
Absolutely. And that was the idea of putting the papers together, was to stimulate exactly that debate. 5,000 jobs is a headline. People get behind, they're quite excited, but actually they're temporary. They're they're construction and then potentially manufacturing roles. They're transient. So when the data centers are built, they're gone. They're not local community always. They're high skilled, certainly in the power engineering side. They're excellent roles, right? Really well paid. How do we retain that talent afterwards? And to your point about what does it do in terms of employment? Well, actually, the reason I started DevOps Group in Cardiff in 2013 was because there wasn't enough employment here at the top end of the technology sector.
Yeah.
It was the reason I worked all across the UK, because I couldn't find employment locally. Yeah. And so I don't want to see the same thing happen again. And it doesn't happen if all of us stand up and actually say something about what's happening. You start to question, ask hard questions, get the uncomfortable conversations going. That's how we actually kind of hopefully generate some long-term impact.
Yeah, and I think that's a shared mission, right, amongst lots of people that we speak to all the time. Yeah, like everybody wants Wales to succeed and to be better and to have these jobs and these high-skilled roles. So yeah, something we can all get behind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and touched on that. So there's a version of this where data centers get built, the ribbon gets cut, and the senior roles could potentially go to people relocating to other areas. These companies are coming in, they're going to have their own people. What do you both believe needs to be built into the design of these zones from day one to prevent that from happening?
I don't think necessary external talent coming in is a bad thing, actually.
No, I agree.
It brings additional thinking and skill sets. It builds an anchor point for us to work around. But I think we can't stop there. And we can't only rely on these large organizations recruiting. We've got to try and work out how that knowledge and talent builds in the community, gives back and translates that out. So I would actually encourage these organizations to bring more top talent here, build capability. You know, if we had a Microsoft location, a Google location, an Anthropic location situated in Wales that could attract top talent in, and then from there you give aspirational to the next generation of talent coming out of university and schools, I think that's a really good thing that we should encourage. So it's not an either or. I think both things need to happen in parallel.
Absolutely, totally agree. And yeah, like we said before, very passionate about that, certainly in terms of the younger generation upskilling and benefiting from organizations being here. Liam, any thoughts on that?
I think you covered that pretty well, to be honest. I think you're exactly right. There's nothing wrong with the best talent coming here, so long as they're here to upskill the next generation and to work with them. It would be a real shame if someone like, for example, Microsoft or Amazon, situated here, brought their engineers here and then just continued to bring their engineers here and didn't work with the local community. That would be a real shame.
And that's the opportunity the growth zones have, actually, is they could start to mandate that sort of upskilling and long-term impact. They could say, if you want to take advantage of the zone that we've worked really hard to secure, these are going to be some of the rules. And so the great thing about the growth zones is there's no real structure to them. The bad thing about the growth zones is there's no real structure to them. One of the things I think we've got to encourage is to actually shape what a growth zone is. You asked me the question, to begin and open the conversation today. Well, actually, I don't really know. And when I looked at the detail, there wasn't enough. And actually, I think we need to take a lot more time to roll out a number of ideas that could potentially make a growth zone a really valuable thing. Like, is it a free port? Or the same idea as a free port? Does it have tax incentives for being inside it? Does it mandate that companies operating in there have to make an investment in a certain way? What are the benefits to SMEs in a growth zone? What's the employment structure? There's a whole range of questions that we can start to open a debate on and get some shape around that will actually make a growth zone a really meaningful thing to have in Wales.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it makes it more than just a data center. And what I'd love the growth zone to be is more of an identity, right? It's just like Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley's nobody questions what Silicon Valley is. It has that really strong identity of tech companies. And wouldn't it be great to have a strong identity in South and North Wales where people realize, these are where the interesting technical companies are in Wales, or doing interesting things, or using AI well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned there people. But again, you're going back to SMEs. There must be some sort of framework for partnerships with SME ultimately. So you've got Critical Cloud, you're looking at Pendra. There must be all this expertise in Wales that can help the AI growth zone and help people coming in to build and excite people with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there just needs to be perhaps the facility where we can join and become a part of this. What is the entity that is this this growth zone? Where do I sign up? That would be the question that I have. Because I think there is so much that we can do in the community and we can speak to each other, but I think there has to be something more to this. There has to be some kind of formalization of it, I think, and for this to work.
And while funding can be part of that answer, there's something extra inside growth zones. I think there's a really important part for government to play in this, to do the things that only government can do, to reduce barriers to entry, to streamline red tape, to give access to parts of the ecosystem that the private sector struggles to get access to. So, for example, if you're an SME that's been ratified to go into a growth zone, maybe you've been through some level of due diligence, you've got mandated cybersecurity levels, then you get accelerated access into the Welsh NHS, as an example, right? Yeah, that's something in the government's gift to give. It could stipulate the framework and a policy by which that happens. It costs very little, but actually the innovation that could come from that is significant. And that's a benefit of being in the growth zone versus being outside it. So I think we need to look at those things that give competitive advantage to companies inside that. And to get that competitive advantage, I think the bar needs to be pretty high. This can't be something that's just open to everyone. I think we should set the bar this time quite high. And stimulate that kind of environment that we want to build.
I think you touched on something really interesting there as well, right? The access to market is a really big part of this, and I know the Sovereign AI Fund, which is 500 million going towards UK AI companies who are going to be the next generation of big AI companies. And a big part of that is it's not just about the money; it's also about actual access to market. It's like, well, they're in the government, right? They have good access and good connections to government. They can introduce you to the right people and make these connections. And as a small company, especially SMEs in Wales, it can be quite hard to break into that and to make those connections. So if that is something that the government could offer, absolutely, not drop your quality standards or anything, but, provide some kind of way to engage with these companies and to make those connections that doesn't exist right now, that would be incredibly valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. But they do it in other areas, don't they? If you're supplying technology staff into local government in Wales, they'll have frameworks and they'll have things set up that are quite rigid in terms of what's expected, what you have to achieve, and then you go on a sort of framework for a period of time. So I guess like you're saying, it's trying to build something like that for the AI growth zone in Wales.
And we talk a lot about what we want to see in these growth zones, but actually there's a ton of stuff I don't want to see either. And I don't want to be seeing it become another grant funding mechanism. There's a huge opportunity here to have private investment put into these areas. Actually, we're a cutting edge of technology where private investment is kind of really happy to contribute, right? And so I think private investment should get into the mix of this and actually figure out what its short-term and long-term kind of opportunity is, because investment is put in for an ROI. Here's an amazing ROI. If we can shift the productivity gains of SMEs across Wales, we see a significant improvement, not only in the top line of these organisations, but potentially in the economic situation as well. I don't think government should fund that. I think actually government should keep its money out as much as possible. Because with government money comes tons of red tape. And it's not needed in this situation.
It sounds like to me that they will obviously, I don't know if it's controversial, but the government will oversee it. But there sounds like there's a huge onus on people like yourself. You're obviously passionate about it. You're in the industry. So maybe industry leaders need to look at your framework and try and build a mechanism to help government.
And we had a great partnership that was built quite a few years ago out of some initiatives that MIT were running here in Wales. It was called the REAP program, and its idea was to bring 5 pillars of kind of an ecosystem together. That was big corporates and enterprise, it was government, it was education, it was entrepreneurs, and it was risk capital. On a single kind of focus to try and shift at that point entrepreneurial talent. You can apply exactly the same thing to this context inside of a growth zone. You can use that same framework with a single goal to achieve the new Welsh Government's ambition to close the productivity gap. That's the goal we're trying to work towards. AI is the lever that we do that through, and a growth zone is the enabler to that kind of mechanism, I think.
Brilliantly said. Absolutely brilliant. Maybe a challenge though with SMEs. So I was reading SMEs account for around 62%, I think you said, for employment in Wales. But AI adoption across Welsh small businesses is estimated to be about 7 to 10%. Why is that gap so wide, and what does it look like to actually close that?
I think from my perspective, I think, and you probably agree on this as well, SMEs and small businesses are just really time poor. Like they're focused on running their business day to day. They don't have the luxury of having an R&D team or anything like this that can go and experiment with these things. They're just focused on the day to day and delivering that. And how you break out of that is a really interesting question. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I started an entire company to try and help solve that problem. So
Exactly. Cool.
I couldn't agree more. It's capacity. It's the biggest conversation that we have with all our customers at the moment is the capacity constraints. And so I think there's no lack of will to do this, right? I think a lot of organizations are trying to dip their toe in the water. I think they've got two challenges. One is the time constraint that Liam's just talked about. It's the capacity. There's a million things to do in a small business, and this is just another thing on top. And so that's a challenge. I think the second thing is they don't know where to start. There's too much choice. There's too much stuff going on.
Yeah.
Where do I make a bet if I'm going to divert capital and time away from things I know are already working to do something speculative? How do I reduce the risk on that? I think that's quite an area of thinking that's in its infancy for SMEs. So they're kind of thinking about how they made these bets, and it just keeps falling down the priority list for a whole range of reasons. So we kind of try and help that our businesses with that solution by taking a lot of the heavy lifting away on the kind of infrastructure, cloud, and operational side. That's helping free up the really capable engineers inside these businesses to focus on product development and to offload a lot of the work onto us, so that kind of gives them more time back to start the experimentations.
Brilliant.
And in our customer base, we're starting to see those productivity gains slowly. Organizations are finding the time now by giving us a lot of the operational workload to really invest into their own productivity gains, to start to use some of the development kind of capabilities that are coming out of Anthropic and Cursor and a million other organizations that are kind of working in this space. So that's brilliant to see.
Absolutely. And what we were talking about as well, I guess there's companies will have concerns over data as well in terms of where it's stored, how it's held, time it's stored for, etc. But I guess that's something they need to consider.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's almost like an opposite end of the spectrum problem where, of course, right, I mean, everybody should be concerned about where their data goes and how it's handled, but quite often the people who are stopped from using AI and some of the latest technologies are the ones who are the really large incumbents, who are really slow to move, who deal with sensitive data and all this kind of stuff. They're scared to use AI, like they're scared of giving their data away, and rightfully so sometimes. Where do you send it? Where does it go? Is it trained on? All this kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely an educational piece there to be had. But I think to something, I think you wrote something before about if there is to be training, it has to be a much longer term intervention rather than like you can't just send someone on a course for a day and say, right, here's AI and like, oh great, my life has changed now for the better. To have a successful intervention and to really show people how they can use it in their business, there needs to be some longer term kind of initiative there.
Yeah, and I think with AI, we're starting to see the upskilling needed in the same way that we sort of set the digital skills when we were doing basic training courses to get people into software like Excel and kind of using word processing and all those sorts of things, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got people consuming AI, it's ubiquitous in both work and at home now, I think. And I think people have dipped their toe in the water with, ChatGPT and kind of Claude and getting more comfortable. That's not really going to shift the needle for SMEs, though. We need to get into a single productivity issue inside their organization, a problem that's really going to shift the needle. And the training that I've been talking about is that we need to get in and actually kind of show them how to deploy the immense capability that's out there to solve that problem in a more efficient way, to take that business process, re-engineer it, get the data in shape, deal with the regulation and the costs around AI. And that's where companies like Pendra are doing a great job to give customers more choice in the models that they're using in a more cost-effective way that's dealing with compliance and regulation. So I think there's a lot of stuff we need to do to help these organizations. And so we can touch on it later, but the next thing beyond the growth zones is that we need to think about, I think lab is an overused word, but there's some sort of forward deployed engineering capability that needs to be built for SMEs by SMEs in Wales.
Yeah.
To go and actually get this stuff embedded into a few organisations and show people what's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was brilliantly said, James, because I think I read all the time that proving ROI with AI is the challenge. But if you're going in and embedding yourself into a problem or a challenge, that helps everyone concerned, surely, in terms of proving that model and why it works.
Well, you get case studies out of the back of it, right?
Yeah.
And case studies build success because people see the gains that can be made.
Yeah.
They see where the investments are, and they see the ROI of those investments.
Yeah.
And then they ask the question, well, how do I do that?
Yeah.
And there should be organisations in Wales that are able to front door access into that. We've got some amazing ones, FinTech Wales.
Yeah.
For the financial services organisations, we've got Tramshed. These are organisations that understand the community they're in and can signpost people in to this engineering capability in these case studies to show them what's possible.
Yeah. And I think I totally agree on the ecosystem itself. There's also the sort of international investment team are going to look to bring with Plaid Cymru coming into government. They want more investment into the area. They want to promote local companies, but I think they're going to still want to attract large technology businesses into the area. So the Welsh Government are doing a good job of attracting businesses in. By having the AI growth zones here, why is that attractive to an organisation potentially looking to move in and bring a big organisation to Wales?
That is a great question. To be honest, I think it comes back to what we were saying earlier, right? It's like the growth zone is still in its infancy, and I think it has to have some of these, some of these larger benefits that the government might be able to run to make it attractive for people to come in. So yeah, if there is a benefit from being in the zone and dealing with other businesses in the zone or attracting talent here, being able to get closer to the public sector, they haven't happened yet. But if they do, it would absolutely make it attractive for people to come in to the growth zone here.
Absolutely. And it sounds like it's something that everyone in Wales should be championing because it helps everyone, ultimately, from what we're saying. So it helps all the organisations, it helps government, it helps the economy, and it helps the whole prosperity of what we're trying to do.
It's complicated, right? But and it would be tough to do, but everybody wins. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
So if we're sitting here in 10 years' time, so what does success actually look like for the AI growth zone in Wales?
So I think success for an AI growth zone really, for me, stems from one thing, that we've had a meaningful impact on SMEs across Wales. Because that's the thing that's going to shift our economic kind of numbers.
Yeah.
And so the Welsh Government have set out this aim of halving the productivity gap. We should see a meaningful impact on that from SMEs in Wales. And we should be able to tie some of the best case studies back to the impact that growth zones had, potentially as an accelerant or a catalyst to that innovation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can also see mechanisms and data and kind of ongoing investment that demonstrates that generational shift has occurred. And that isn't just a one-time effort that's been put in place, but is now a roadmap of continued investment and opportunity coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much I can add to that, to be honest. I think that it would be a real shame to look back in 10 years' time, wouldn't it? And to think it was another one of those initiatives that never went anywhere. Right, data center.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, that's all we got from it. We got a data center, and at the end of the day, like I can use a data center over the internet anywhere in the world. I can use data centers in Australia or the US or wherever I need to. So having one here on my doorstep doesn't necessarily directly help me. So yeah, it needs to be more than that. I think we're all agreed on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And but it sounds like to me that there needs to be intervention soon, now. Like obviously you've written the paper. So what are the next steps would you advise from today?
I think there needs to be a much bigger engagement with the SMEs across Wales is the first step.
Whose responsibility is that?
I think the government at the moment need to lead the charge on that. I think everyone's got a part to play in it. Companies that are interested in what's going on with the growth zone should hold their hand up and kind of offer support. But I think it's up, because it's a government-led initiative, I think it's up to government to try and lead and kind of herd the cats
Yeah.
at the moment, and try and take the advice as well, and take a broad spectrum of advice. And it's not just the builders and the people providing solutions. I think they need to go out into a much wider part of Wales and ask what the challenges are and find those case studies. You know, the great thing about AI is I think we can deploy this into a whole range of businesses, right? We can deploy it into farms. We can deploy it into agriculture. We can deploy it into bakeries. We can deploy it into all of these small businesses that make the community here in Wales work. We can take advantage of Welsh language businesses, and English language businesses can both benefit, right? So, you know, there's no boundaries anymore, right? The capability that we're bringing can elevate all sorts of problems. And I think we need to go and find out what those challenges are and see if we can build a small set of case studies in each of these areas across Wales, not just in Cardiff, not just in Bangor and Anglesey, where, you know, where they will be the focus of the growth zones, but actually nationwide.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it has to start with the government coordination and work out from there. And just like you said, right, with the MIT project, where you've got investors and academics and founders and the government all kind of like coming together, and like something special will come from that, I'm sure.
Amazing. So to finish then, so to wrap that bit up then, if you could give any advice to a Welsh business owner then to sort of put their hand up or make themselves known or contribute, what advice would you give them right now?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Because if we're saying it's down to, the government can lead it, but ultimately it's down to the large majority of the companies in Wales are SMEs, surely we need to be championing to get people to put their hands up and say, look, we want to contribute and we can help in terms of focus groups, leadership, and anything else to help the government potentially have an easier pathway and decision.
Yeah, I think you've already started the work on this, right? I mean, you put the website together to build the manifesto, if you want to call it a manifesto, and you have a list on there, right, where people can make a pledge and say, I want to be involved in this. And I think like that's a great first step, right? The government could pick that up and go, okay, here's a group of passionate people who really want to get involved in this and who really care about this. And that's just the beginning, right there.
We're kind of got to create two front doors, as I see it. We're going to create a front door for the organizations that have got a solution, and there's loads of them. There's builders, there's all the builders in the community, and I'm not talking about construction workers, I'm talking about development houses and data engineers and infrastructure experts. There's a whole group of communities. And when you think about forward deployed engineering talent, it's a multidisciplinary set of skills coming together. It's multiple companies forming and offering through some mechanism. So I think that group who are already operating in the space need to come and hold their hands up and get some interest and say, look, we're prepared to be involved in some way. We don't know what it looks like, but we'd love to be involved. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's the first front door. The second front door that we then need to build is to go and find the companies that are going to benefit from that capability. Find the ones that are able to talk about a problem where they think AI could help, or they got the capacity, or they could create the capacity to have a solution built for them that are willing to be a case study, right? Because it's not right for everyone at this time. It might be in the future, but actually we need a few organizations right now where they believe that they're willing to go on this journey, and they need to kind of probably step forward as well. So I think the first job we've got to do is try and get a message out. This growth zone is here. It's coming. This is what it could be. This is how we'd like to get people involved. And to do that, I think the whole ecosystem and the whole community in Wales needs to work together.
Brilliant. What a great way to finish. I think it is very obvious from today that there is a lot of work to do. What an exciting time. And I think, as James has said, and I think we'll share the link in terms of your pledge and making yourself known. So if you are interested, obviously sign the pledge, but we sort of implore you to put your hand up and help build the AI growth zone in Wales to what it should be, so we can look back in 10 years' time with great success. Thank you to James. Thank you to Liam, as always. And we look forward to seeing you soon.